Welcome to the Idaho Young Farmer and Ranchers Discussion Meet Final Four. I'm going to read this so I don't go off script. I am Mitchell Searle from Cassia County. I would have remembered that without the script. I will be serving as room chair for this round. At this time, out of respect for the competitors, please turn off your cell phones, your notifications, your Tinder updates. Also, please keep distractions as minimal as possible to allow for full concentration by the competitors. There will be no interaction with the audience and no additional information is allowed at the discussion table. Remember to have fun and make it a pleasant experience for all who participate. Serving as moderator for this round will be True Rice of Boundary County. Serving as timer for this round will be Sterling Meldrum, right there, from Latah County. The judges, timer, and competitors have been briefed as to the rules of the competition. I yield control of the floor to the lovely True.
Thank you, Mitchell. The competitors have been briefed on the competition and realize that their general discussion should be directed at each other rather than at the audience. As moderator, I will not attempt to direct this conversation. Remember, the discussion is meant to stimulate a committee meeting, not a panel discussion. As such, I will not intervene unless or until disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. The competitors are Bradie Anderson, Chyla Wilson, Addison Briggs, and Kennedy Farden. This round's question will be question number 2. Technology has made the world more interconnected than ever, creating new avenues for communication with policymakers. How can digital engagement be leveraged to effectively connect Farm Bureau members with their local, state, and national elected and appointed officials? We will begin this discussion with 1 minute of quiet time, during which each competitor will be able to prepare their 30-second opening statement. Following the opening statements, they will have 20 minutes of open discussion, followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1-minute closing statement. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. At this time, competitors, you now have 1 minute to prepare your opening statements. Time has been called. Competitors, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding a red card. You may begin.
Testing. The average age of an Idaho senator and representative is 55 years old. The average age of an Idaho farmer or rancher is 56 years old. Today, as YF&R members, I look forward to finding solutions that can bridge the gap between technology and making connections with our elected officials that are attainable, user-friendly, and digestible.
I'm one of the lucky ones. My state senator is my neighbor and a farmer and rancher. This makes it easy for me to connect with him. Not everyone is so lucky, which is why technology is one of the best tools we have to connect us with our elected officials. But many do not understand the best way to use that connection. As we discussed today, I hope we can find ways to not only talk about how to connect with our officials, but also how to leverage that connection.
Having served as a Farm Bureau lobbyist, I know all the different tools that we have available to our members to help engage with policymakers, and they're all great. However, the goal should not simply be more communication. It should be smarter, targeted, and more relationship-based communication, thus turning our members into year-round influencers instead of one-time lobbyists.
My grandparents had to handwrite letters to their elected officials and wait weeks for a response. Today's digital engagement has changed everything. The hashtag Still Farming campaign reached 115 million people without spending $1 on promotion, thanks to the Farm Bureau network. That kind of reach is powerful, and it proves that when we speak together, our voices echo in every corner of this nation. I'm eager to hear how this group will amplify that voice.
You have heard the opening statements. The competitors may now proceed with the discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion to your fellow members.
Kennedy, you mentioned that the average age is 55 years old, and I think a great place for us to start this conversation would be by analyzing the issue that has caused this to be a topic at this discussion meet. And I think that that is one of the biggest reasons is we've got such an age gap in our industry.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We do have a higher age, not only in our members, in farmers and ranchers, but also with our senators and our representatives. And that is an increasing issue with more technology too. I mean, that gap's getting larger and the disconnection is getting larger. I don't know if you've ever tried to see your grandma use Facebook, but it's a little bit of a difficult concept of technology, but I do think that there are solutions out there that we can come together today and find that bridging the gap. And Chyla, I wanted to kind of point that conversation to you as someone who has been in that lobbyist position and has been in the Capitol and seen some of the new technology. What kind of solutions have you seen thus far that have worked and really not worked that can maybe kind of help start gauge our conversation of what we can do and what solutions that we can find?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Kennedy. It's a very in-depth question is the problem that you just posed. So going into the age gap issue, I mean, one of the things that I'd point out, though, too, is we have so many tools as a Farm Bureau. So I feel like we have the tools available to bridge that gap, and you'd be surprised, too, as how already capable our senators and legislators are, and even local policymakers. It's now literally just part of it. As you're on social media, that's a way to connect to your constituents in a faster way, but also for you to do your own messaging when it comes to campaigning or working on your own legislation. So really, the gap that I see is more making sure that you have the engagement that is already there and available. Obviously, there's some teaching that could go into that, but I feel Farm Bureau does have those resources. So Addie, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts as well as we kind of just discuss this a little bit more of what maybe we're trying to analyze the issue as then we also go into solutions.
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting, Bradie, that you brought up your grandparents had to write letters, because it's actually been shown now that writing letters is much more effective than a copy and paste email. You usually can get more engagement if you write a handwritten letter. So I feel like that kind of comes with the age gap issue too, is we are so used to just our digital connection and we are just copy and paste and send an email. A lot of times too, I think that when we say engaging with our elected officials, we think, oh, that means I'm going to send an email or I'm going to call them or I'm going to post something on social media. But I think the real issue here is that we need to learn how to advocate. And that is different than just talking to our elected officials. Advocating is building relationships, getting the public involved, and making sure that we are looking for a change and coming up with solutions. And I think that that's kind of the boat that we miss a lot, especially in our generation, is we want to send that email really quick and fast, and then we don't want to worry about it again. So Kennedy, I wonder how you feel about like our generation and how we specifically engage with our elected officials.
Yeah, I think the word advocacy could be talked over and over in this conversation. I appreciate you bringing it up this early because I kind of have some ideas on maybe a solution that we can kind of gauge with that as well. But going back to your question of how we can engage and how we as a younger generation do engage with our elected officials. And I do see that Twitter and X is becoming a lot more popular within the political space, which is very surprising, but also can be very helpful. It's very fast information, and it's typically pretty accurate coming straight from that source. But moving maybe more into a solution type part, Once again, Chyla, I've got a question for you, but I know our public affairs team and our governmental affairs team, they do the Capitol Minutes every week. And it's a short 3-minute, very digestible, very quick to the point. It's a member-focused video that is helping raise awareness to us members about what's being talked about in the Capitol. So do you think that there's any way that us members could advocate for where we're coming from and advocate to our officials by maybe even shifting that a little bit and making videos and making some sort of Capitol Minutes that focuses towards advocating to our legislators and maybe sharing part of our story? We could team with the governmental affairs team and make those short videos. We can incorporate YF&R, share our short video of an advocacy, and maybe even reflect back on a short script of, hey, these are the bills that's going on, and reflect back onto our lobbyists and having that connection. And Bradie, I'd love to hear your concept on it of maybe how we could bridge that gap of advocacy. And is that even a possible solution that we could bring in the advocacy, bring in the technology, but also still keeping that real human connection, just as your grandparents did?
I think it's absolute.
I was just going to throw in a statistic there. I was talking to some members of the Farm Bureau team today, and they said there's actually only a 7% click rate on our Capitol Reflections. So that in and of itself is a problem. I just wanted to throw that in there because Kennedy brought that up. But go ahead, Bradie.
And I agree on the Capitol Reflections. I, as a solution, would love to see that distributed other places. You know, right now you can only really find it if you go on the website. I would love to see that on social media as well. I would sit there and watch a 3-minute video about what's going on lately at the Capitol. You know, I worked for Governor Gary Herbert down in Utah for a while and on his public relations team, and our phone rang off the hook. And if we'd had our email chime on, it never would have stopped. It's incessant. And so I think as we start to move into talking about solutions, one thing we should look at is how efficient our communication is. I think that one thing Farm Bureau could do, and we could be active participants in that, is by giving training on how to communicate a message. I met with my local senator, Mark Harris, and he said, you know, a lot of times I get in my email and it's the same subject line after another. It's just copy and paste of the masses sending the same email, and he's not reading it. But he says, if I see, hi, this is Bradie Anderson from Soda Springs. This is affecting my farm and ranch. Please do this about it. Short, concise, to the point. He'll read it. And so I'm curious if you guys think the idea of maybe hosting a workshop here about how we can write those concise and really tell the story of ag in a concise and efficient way so that whoever the staffer is on the other end, bless their heart, receiving all these emails and calls, is able to take that short message and do something with it.
Well, and Bradie, I'd add too, you hit it right on the nail. And I appreciate it too, because you mentioned kind of doing the email copy and paste. And that is the one thing that they will tell you is they immediately know when it's a mass send out email. So we have things such as, you know, the Capitol Reflections, which when you bring that up, while it has a low click rate and stuff, really that serves as a way for members to stay engaged and knowledgeable on the issues that are going through. I wouldn't say it's the way to bridge the advocacy that we've talked about, especially like how Bradie had brought up, because the thing is we need to tell our stories. It has to be personalized. They are going to ignore those mass emails. What really comes down to, again, those relationship-based communications that we can have with our legislators. But I think that there's plenty of opportunities also within the Farm Bureau for those. We have our entire legislative conference, which a lot of times will center around these skills of, hey, how do you write a letter? We set up a dinner where you get to sit at a table with the legislators in your district. And a lot of the times the governmental affairs will encourage you as like a goal is get their cell numbers. If you can have their cell number, it's that open relationship communication that we're looking for, because then it can be more targeted. The goal with the Capitol Reflections and all these other tools that we have available during session is for us to know what to talk about so it can be targeted after we've established those open relationships. So I'd be curious, Addie, because you brought up, you know, the letter writing originally and now it's transitioned to email, but how do you see obviously letter writing was personal, but how do we get personal in our relationship so that when we're communicating, it's our stories to people that want to hear them, that need to hear them?
Yeah, so I also heard that there's a lot higher rate of somebody listening, like one of the legislators listening, if you can get in the ear of one of their staff members or one of their aides. So if you can build a relationship with them, maybe on like the national level, you can't quite build a relationship with our senators at the national level. They're over a lot of different constituents. But if you could get the attention of one of their aides, you have a lot higher chance of getting that aide or that staff member to put that in front of your legislator. So I think that we can take that a step back, maybe not directly contacting our national leaders, but maybe we're contacting their staff members. Like I said, my state senator lives right down the road from me. It's pretty easy for me to get in his ear. But that is different than at the national level, and especially our local leaders, we can definitely get in their ears. So I feel like when we are talking, just like you said, Chyla, we need to make sure that we are using relationship-based communication. And on Farm Bureau University, if you guys have ever visited that website, they do have a political advocacy training that is great. We can also invite AFBF staff members to come out and give those trainings at our county board meetings, at our YF&R activities, at the IFBF Fusion Conference. We can invite those people to come and give those advocacy trainings, and I think that that would be a great way for us to learn from the professionals. So Bradie, I'm curious, what else do you see as a solution in getting that advocacy training out?
I'd love to bring some more solutions to the table. In Idaho, we're lucky to have dirt road discussions. It's my favorite thing to put on as I'm going down the road. You know, you live rurally, you drive a lot. I'd love to see an adaptation of that. I think we have to give more credit to our legislators in that they want to be apprised and knowledgeable on the issues. They want to hear us. And so I would love to see a version of dirt road discussions, and I'm just workshopping ideas here, but maybe we could call it Capitol Road Conversations. And we could interview the policymakers and people within our industry that would bring stories and facts to those policymakers so that they are hearing it from us. I think they're eager to get out and get the information, and so why aren't we bringing it to them?
Speaking of policymakers and educating our policymakers, I think a great place that we can start by educating them is our website as well. I'm not sure if you guys have been on there lately and tried to find a policy book. The policy book is nowhere to be found on the first page. You've got to go all the way to the very bottom. You've got to find the county resources, and you've got to click through multiple tabs, then to find two different tabs of the AFBF and then the IFBF different policy books. And educating our senators through different technology, we can utilize this website by updating our website and by falling back on our social media teams and our online teams and our website teams to maybe update this so then we can get that kick started so then we can start these advocacy things so they are aware
And Kennedy,
of those.
I'll just jump in really quick so we don't spend too much time on it because it's not a bad idea. And obviously when we're wanting to advocate, we want to make things accessible. We hand out a hard copy to every single legislator at the start of session. Farm Bureau lobbyists go around and they make that connection. So again, it's going back to you're doing those relationship-based communications. And I feel like our lobby team does a great job of promoting our policy book and everything, but what they don't have is the grassroots, how it is impacting your operation, where your legislators are wanting to know. But not only that, going back to Bradie's great discussion, part of Idaho has always been agriculture. That is one of the great things in Idaho is we have such a strong agriculture-based industry. And you know what? That's something to campaign on in this state is I am connected with my Farm Bureau members. I know agriculture, I know their issues, and I talk to my members on a regular basis, not just the lobbyists. So kind of going off of an idea that you had with the podcast, instead of it being more of just getting information out, to build those relationships and then maybe open that door of communication, I would recommend too, we do something in Ada County where we do a legislative tour. So we have legislators come out onto operations of our board members. They get to go through a harvest and sit in the combine with our farmer, talk to them face to face. But now with the technology, you know what we could do? Facebook live stream. You could do Instagram live stream. You could produce this on social media to help promote it, but then tag those legislators as well so that you're getting your promotion for both your Farm Bureau Ada County and your county and what they're doing, but the legislator is tied to them and that helps them campaign.
I'd love to take that even one step further. And Kennedy, to your point, I totally agree. We do need that to be more accessible. And one big feature I think we need to add is it needs to be searchable, the policy book does. You know, my second grade teacher taught me how to look into a table of contents and find what I'm looking for. But in today's day and age, we need it faster. And so if we could make that searchable, I think that'd be a great additive.
Yeah.
Chyla, to your point, I love the Facebook live streams and the Instagram live streaming. I'm thinking a little out of the box here and wondering if we could take this a step further. I love our farm tour visits, but I know that a lot of the time they don't have time to get out to us. And even taking this to a national level, it's going to be really hard for us to get representatives to come to Idaho a lot of the time. And so I would love to see us partner with a company like Feel Real Virtual Reality. We are able to buy the recording. What is the word I'm looking for?
Technology,
recording technology, to be able to do a virtual tour of our farms and ranches. And the policymaker in Washington or in Boise will be able to put these virtual reality goggles on, and they'll be able to see our farm and ranch, smell it, and hear it. And that might be a way that we can take our advocacy to them. So if they don't have time to make a 5-hour road trip to my corner of the state, they might have 15 minutes to take a walk in the boots of this farmer or rancher.
Yeah. So just to go off of that, Bradie, 20 years ago, 33% of our representatives were tied to production agriculture. That has gone down, and now we're at 13%. And if the trend continues, in 10 years, only 3% of our legislative people will be tied to production agriculture. So we need to be their tie to production agriculture. So not only is our legislators connecting with us, we need to be connecting with them through digital engagement. So I love that idea, Bradie. Have a virtual tour, but also we need to be leveraging our social media. I'm one of those. I don't love social media. I'm not on it. I don't want to share, but it's something I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone to do. So Kennedy, I'm wondering, how do you feel like we are going to all have to step out of our comfort zone to make this happen?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on that. Are you specifically asking like social media, like how can we step up on social media?
Yes. How do you feel like our generation can step up on social media?
The easiest way, which seems kind of simple to us, but a day in the life. There's many people out there that aren't quite aware of where their food comes from, what a farmer looks like. And the Bills NFL football team actually the other day just partnered with a dairy farmer, and they would ask the farmer, hey, how much milk does a dairy cow milk a day? Things like that, and it's really interesting, and I think that's some way that we can step outside of our comfort zone, and realizing those things that are normal to us here in agriculture may not be normal to someone else. And I think that may be more focused on like a community advocacy and a community engagement, same with maybe like the Facebook Live and the virtual streaming as well. I think these are all super great ideas and a bigger advocacy thing, but I do want to tie it back to the question of we're trying to leverage technology for our policymakers, and in reality, I'm not sure if I know a single legislator that would take 5 minutes out of their day to put a VR headset on. And if they do, I would love to go meet them, and it would be a really cool experience. But I do want to reflect back on that social media idea with our policymakers. And Addie, what do you think is a kind of post, or how can we engage with our policymakers in a positive way through technology to be advocating for agriculture?
Addie, if you don't mind, I'd love to give an example, and then I'd have a question for you. But when it comes to the social media, I think when you're asking, what does it take to step up? I think that we think that it's so far out of reach, and that, like you said, are they actually paying attention? And I would just go back to the example that, if we're going to talk national level here, AFBF did a Float Us campaign with the WOTUS rule in 2018. So what they did was they sent out, and it went nationwide. So they sent farmers all across the state, or if they didn't get one, said pick it up, a rubber duck. And they said, go put this somewhere on your operation, take a video, take a photo of navigable waters that are on your operation, use this hashtag, and then WOTUS, and tag your legislators, and they're seeing it, of how ridiculous this rule is. And they even gave you kind of a good little book of what to start up with, of like, WOTUS is not what it's quacked up to be, or, even a duck knows that a ditch or lowlands isn't navigable waters. So you can have like tools available to help with that social media gap, but I don't think it's as hard as many people think, or as time consuming. If it's not as far as, I have to make a whole VR video, while that is helpful, it can be a targeted message that is very simple for our members to communicate. But it's got to be that personalized. Going back to Bradie, of you talking about, they'll ignore those mass emails. If it's your operation, they're going to pay attention because you're their constituent. So I was just really curious, thinking of that specifically for your operation, since you brought up that your legislator's right down the road. Yeah. What would you think would be the most influential social media post on an issue that you could create for your operation that your legislator would still see and would influence them, despite being neighbors already?
Yeah. So a good example of this is 2 years ago in southeastern Idaho, we were facing a water crisis, and I actually did make a video just showing pictures of me and my family out on our farm, and just kind of had a script on there saying, this is what this would do to me and my family. And I have like maybe 300 followers on social media. I took my account off of private for about a week and shared that, and that got about 15,000 views. That like blew my mind. Like I said, I'm not a social media person. So I'm pretty sure my legislators saw that. I'm pretty sure multiple legislators saw it. And so I feel like just what you've been saying this whole time, Chyla, relationship-based communication is the best thing we can do. When we show them this is how it's going to affect us, that is the most effective way to communicate with them. So I feel like we've really gone over some great solutions today, and also have analyzed the problem of it's not really about the connection, it's about leveraging the connection. So I really feel like if we go home to our county boards, one thing I'm gonna go home and do is I'm gonna be more brave about social media. That's my action call after this. Bradie, I'm wondering, what do you feel like your action call is?
Yeah, Addie, it makes me sad to hear that you don't think 300 is a lot of people. I mean, there's probably not even 300 people in this room, and if you gave them an idea, how powerful is that? You know, the reach of 100 people is a lot, and 300 is even better.
Time has been called. Please prepare your closing statements. I ask that the audience remain silent for 1 minute to aid the competitors in their preparation. Please put down your pencils. An involuntary order, please stand and give you 1 minute closing statement.
We've had a great discussion today about how to not only connect with our legislators, but also how to leverage that connection. I appreciate the discussion that we had today on that. And some of the solutions that I feel like we've come up with is using relationship-based communication, whether that's on a virtual reality tour or through our social media posts. We need to step out of our comfort zone and not just make the legislators or our elected officials come to us. We need to make sure that we are going to them. Thank you.
I think this was a great discussion, and we covered a lot of different resources that Farm Bureau does have. Really what comes down to it, just like the question said, is how best do we leverage it? We want to have a targeted communication approach with these relationships that we build over and over, and Farm Bureau offers these opportunities, even for the relationship building. I appreciate the conversation that we had, and I look forward to seeing how us as members can go forward and continue to communicate on our issues, because it's our story that is important. It's our story that needs to be told. And we have individuals that want to hear it, and we can tell it through these technology advancements that we continue to see year after year.
I was the 8th generation of my family, born and raised in Hennifer, Utah, where for 170 years we farmed and laid down deep roots. The state of Utah changed, and the state wanted to put a highway through the sacred farm and ranch that my family called home. The only tool we had at our disposal was a home phone, and it wasn't enough to save it. If that were happening today, we would have an entire toolbox of resources available to us. I'm hopeful that Farm Bureau will take the tools that we talked about today, extending a podcast, virtual reality tours, connecting with our legislators on a personal level, and make it so that families in the future don't know the same reality that my family did. I think it's important we take a seat at the table, because if we don't sit at the table, we'll end up on the menu.
Today, we found many great solutions to help bridge the gap between farmers and policymakers utilizing technology. We found that tagging our legislators in social media posts, being more personable, and engaging in more workshops here at the Fusion Conference can be tangible solutions for the future. We can reflect back on our Farm Bureau policymakers and our government affairs team to better our website and better our advocacy solutions. Thank you for the great discussion today, and I look forward to how technology can help bridge the gap.
Let's show our competitors a round of appreciation at this time. I will now return control of the room to our room chair, Mitchell Searle.
Thank you, True. You kept them under control. Can the judges please stand up? Let's show our appreciation to them. Austin Large, Jessica Wade, and Kim Hobbs. Judges, if you'll go to the super secret tabulation room. Thank you. At this time, we'll have the competitors give a brief statement about who they are and let us get to know you a little bit. In voluntary order.
My name is Kennedy Farden. I am currently a student at the University of Idaho for 14 more days. Woohoo! I graduate with an animal science degree with a focus in production and begin a master's program in January in leadership and organization development. I'm originally from New Plymouth, Idaho. Go Plymouth. And I'm currently going to move down to Twin Falls in a couple weeks and join back to the Twin Falls County Farm Bureau where I all started in this.
I'm Addie Briggs. I grew up in Montague, Idaho on a hay, grain, and small cattle operation. My husband grew up in Rigby on a hay, grain, and feedlot operation. And after we got married, I convinced him to come to Montague. So we are back on my family's farm. We have 3 kids, 2 boys, ages 5 and 3, and an 8-month-old little girl. And they love to farm and ranch as much as we do.
Chyla Wilson, many of you already know me since I was on staff as one of the lobbyists for a while. Retired once my husband and I started having kids, so if you've seen 2 little redheads running around, Joseph was the first. He's 2.5, and Diana is now 10 months. We now currently run and operate Wilson Ag Consulting and Drone Services, so he was the one talking about drones, if you saw that honking thing dragging around the lobby. But been involved with Farm Bureau since I was a collegiate at the U of I and just continued on with staff. And now we're happy to be volunteer members now that I've retired from staff.
My name is Bradie Anderson, and I thank you guys for that conversation. I think it's awesome to see 4 smart women up here. I was born and raised in Hennifer, Utah, but married an Idaho boy a few years ago and moved up. I'm a retired news reporter, and now we run a beef and bison business, meat business, and have a butcher shop in Grace, Idaho, if you know it.
Thank you, guys. Let's give them a round of applause again.